Hi everyone, Will Alexander here, General Manager of Property Management at Property Brokers. Over the last 6 weeks we've been travelling around New Zealand, going to 16 different locations, talking about the Residential Tenancies Act, the Healthy Home Standards, and also the new regulations that are going to be coming into our industry. It has been really fascinating to talk to people around the country, ear to the grindstone sort of stuff. Really talking to the locals, you find out so much about what is happening in everyone's different market, lots of different challenges, different dynamics, different things that are pulling and pushing what happens within their industries. But it's been absolutely brilliant and it's been an amazing journey. What I want to do today is do an online version and go through the same sort of thing for everyone that could not make it there in person. So, welcome to the online version of the RTA Roadshow. Let's get into it. The online series is going to cover 3 topics: Residential Tenancies Act, the amendments, the Healthy Home Standards, and also the regulations that are going to come into our industry. What I want to do before that is give you a market overview about what's happening across New Zealand in renting and why is the government doing what they're doing. I think they have done the right thing. They've listened, they've learned, they've rightly identified that the way Kiwis live in New Zealand is changing. We've called it generation rent for a long time. That means people are consciously choosing to rent properties in New Zealand. People can't get onto that first rung of the property ladder because of that barrier to market. Typically that's the deposit. So New Zealand government have identified that things need to change. What I want to do now is give you a little bit of context about what we're seeing across our market that is driving this change and why we think that what they're doing is probably the best thing for us right now. So first and foremost, 27 months. The average tenancy term now across New Zealand is 27 months. When I started in property management years and years ago, it was 6 months. It was very fast paced. We'd run around Auckland renting apartments, wear out 4 pairs of shoes per year. It was a lot of fun. That was it then, and now it's very, very different. And we see that tenancy term extending longer and longer and longer. It's currently 27 months, but if you take out the transient market, which is the students renting properties in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, then that's pulling down the average. You take that stuff out, then the average is probably more like 3 years, which is only going to get longer. If you go to Europe, people rent properties for generations. That is where New Zealand is heading. Vacancy rates right now across our portfolio, which is provincial New Zealand, 1.3%. 365 days of the year times by 1.3% is 4.7 days. On average, it takes us 4.7 days to rent a property. That is low. It's skewed low because in most cases we don't even advertise properties anymore. We have a long list of pre-approved tenants, good credit checks, good reference checks. They're a known quantity to the business because we've rented them to them in the past. We just rent straight to those people. We don't even advertise. The market is getting tighter and tighter and tighter. At the moment, the rental pool, so this is the available rental properties within New Zealand, has only grown by 2.2% in the last year. I'll show you something shortly that will put that into context, but that's not much. So if you look at those 3 things, longer term tenancies, shorter vacancies, a rental pool that's not growing, what do you get? Classic supply and demand. Supply and demand, what happens? Rents go up big time. Over the last year, we've seen a rental increase on average of 13% across our portfolio. So our average rent at the moment is about $409 per week. If you times 13% by that, that's an increase every year by $50. That's quite a lot. If you look at across New Zealand, the average rent is $468. 13% increase on that. It's higher in some cases. That's how quickly rents are going up. Next set of numbers I want to show you, and this is fascinating stuff. So, since the beginning of the year 2020, we have seen a net migration of 79,000 people coming back to New Zealand. and there is a further 250,000 people that want to come back to New Zealand. But hold on a minute, the rental pool has only grown by 2.2%. So where are these people going? I can't answer that question. I don't know. I see a holistic view of our portfolio and our business, and I can see that the amount of bonds lodged in areas is reducing big time. So that basically means is a lot of these people coming back to New Zealand are moving back into their rental properties. The people that were renting these properties are back out onto the market trying to find something new, putting a huge amount of pressure on the market. Average rent now is $409. When I started at Property Brokers just under 2 years ago, it was $306. In less than 2 years, it's gone up over $100. The amount of rental properties in provincial New Zealand right now is 70,000. There's 668,000 rental properties in New Zealand, but in provincial New Zealand we only have 70,000. That's only grown by 2.2% over the last year. So most of the rental properties are in the major city centres, Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin, that sort of thing. So the amount of rental properties in provincial New Zealand isn't that much, really, when you think about it. And the final point I want to make tonight is $1 billion has been spent in the last year alone by the government on emergency housing, putting families that can't find homes into hotels and motels. This is big, scary numbers and scary position to be in. I tried to travel up to Wairoa the other day, couldn't get accommodation. All the motels, all the hotels were booked up with people, families that were put into them by the government. $1 billion. If you think, what does it cost to build a property? $700,000 on average, higher and lower in different parts of New Zealand. $1 billion divided by 700,000 is roughly 1,430 properties. That could have been built in the last year. If we look at the RMA and we free up land and the ability for people to build properties, this all needs to change, and quite rightly so. The government have also flagged that RMA needs to change. Individual councils are different, how we can free up land to make it easier to build properties. It's the one thing that is going to curb all this stuff. Inflation of rents, inflation of house prices, build more properties. So that's the market, those are the key numbers. Now I want to show you a little bit of an overview of New Zealand, and this is a fascinating story really, because I spent most of my career in Auckland and you could not have written the script. If someone told me this 3 years ago when I was sitting in Auckland, I would have thought you're absolutely crazy. So if you look at New Zealand and you've got one map showing the capital gains and you've got one map showing the rental yields, look at where the areas are that are growing. You've got Otago, you've got West Coast. This is very different. Hawke's Bay, massive capital gains. But the really interesting thing is when you combine these two markers, capital gains and cash flow, and you rank the individual areas or regions, look at what is on top and look at what is on bottom. You're looking at Southland, Gisborne, West Coast, Manawatū, Whanganui. They're all the best ranked regions now when you compare capital gains and yield to the other areas. You could not have told me that 3 years ago. I worked in Auckland, worked for a major brand up there for the majority of my career, and I used to go into the auction room during the middle of the day to give myself a bit of a boost, and 350 properties were sold per week. It was absolutely crazy. It was the best place to buy property, all that sort of stuff. Not the case anymore. Buying properties in provincial New Zealand has not been more exciting. Right now you've got 4 markers that are really influencing buying properties and renting properties in New Zealand right now. So you've got the LVR rules, that's been reduced. It's 2020 now, it probably will be reduced or kept down until 2021. You've got bank interest rates. So the lending at the moment, 2.49% for a fixed term of 2 years, incredibly low. That might even get lower. I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor. And then you've got bank term deposits earning 1.5% on your money in your bank before tax. We see so many people at the moment pulling their money out of the bank because it's not working for them and they're investing in property. And I'll share something with you. Every year, Kiwis spend $10 billion on international travel and holidays. Now that the COVID has happened and the borders are closed, where are they spending that money? I'll tell you, they're buying houses, they're buying investment properties, they're renovating their properties, they're buying boats, caravans, camper vans. You try and buy a caravan or a camper van right now, you can't. It's crazy. Provincial New Zealand is getting lots of investment in it. Look at a couple of the big infrastructure projects. So you've got Transmission Gully. Whenever that is finished, what that will do is will open up the whole of the Hora of Whenua. And as we've already seen in those ranking of the regions, Manawatu Wanganui is going extremely well. Live-in, for example, will be within a 55-minute commute to Wellington once that road is finished. You go 10 minutes further up the coast to a beautiful seaside community called Foxton. That's within an hour and 15 minutes of Wellington. When you come from Auckland, an hour and 15-minute commute is absolutely doable. Nothing uncommon about that. Look at the Saddle Road development. So that's the road going over the Taurua Ranges from the Manawatu to the Taurua district, which is Woodville, Paihia-Tua, Dannevirke, at a stretch out to Waipaku as well. When that road is done, that opens up that whole area. And the Manawatu is a massive employer of very secure government departments, all that sort of stuff. The Saddle Road development will bring in a huge amount of people, families. The pressure on the market is growing and growing. It's exciting for the region. So provincial New Zealand is going really, really well. The other day I caught a plane to Gisborne, and the cabin crew lady came on board and she said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special passenger today. It's Greg Foran, the CEO of Air New Zealand. And today he's going to be helping me hand out the drinks and the biscuits and all that sort of stuff." And everyone thought, "Oh, that's pretty great." And I seem to remember reading an article where he was the CEO of Walmart in the States getting paid a huge amount of money. I thought, oh, that's really awesome, very grounded sort of a guy. And I noticed something down to my right, and I looked down and there was a man sitting next to me with an official sort of tag on. And I thought, oh, hold on a minute, that might be Greg Foran. So I asked him, I said, "Yeah, are you Greg?" And he said, "Yes, I am." And I was like, "You beauty. I get to sit next to this man for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to learn as much as I can." And I did, and it was absolutely fascinating. There's a reason I'm telling you this story, but we were taking off from Auckland going to Gisborne, and he said, "Have a look at that over there." And it was a 777, Boeing 777 plane. All the tyres were wrapped up, the engines were wrapped up and all that sort of stuff. And he said, "You know, last year that cost me $180 million, and it's worth $10 million now." 75% of their business was international travel, 25% is domestic. I got off the plane and I thought, I would hate to have that guy's job right now. He has got a tough gig and he's a great guy. The second thing I thought is, what tends to go well through all these difficult times? What's something that we all need? We all need food and we all need somewhere to live. And I got off the plane and I thought, wow, property is just so robust. If you're in it for the long game, it will always go well. Absolutely, buying, selling and renting properties in New Zealand is a great thing to be in. So that's the market overview. That's the context behind what is going on behind all these changes. So I hope you enjoyed that, and stay tuned because we're going to get into the Residential Tenancies Act just in a second. Thank you.